Now for the next section of the video, what I'm going to go over is to have show you some of the different examples of metrics, and to also discuss a little bit more in terms of how specifically we're going to come up with different metrics. All right. So in these slides, if you look at the steps in metrics development, so what we start. Previously, actually, we sort of talking about the general framework or the guidelines for metrics development, but this actually gives you a more breakdown step-by-step kind of instructions. So we define project K deliverable goals. Are we going to do more looking at the time, cost, or the functionality for our products? So that could be one of them, or could be all three, or you probably could have a little bit more other than the three, right? But you got to define exactly what is the key deliverable goals, and this will vary from project to projects. The next one, you based on their goals, you identify measurable attributes from those goals, right? And for instance, if it's a functionality, of course you will need to come up with specific functionality measurements or the measurable surrogates. And then the next step is define the measurement process. We follow the SMART process, where specific should be measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. So that is how we evaluate the goodness of your metrics. Of course, we need to have a manageable number selected, which is a range around 5 to 10. That's what I have been discussing in the previous video, saying that you got to be manageable, and also we need to prioritize them based on the different criteria, and you will need to know exactly what are some of the most important aspects you're looking at over there. And then the next one is actually also very important, because we need to communicate employee roles in data collection. Of course, you feeding a dinosaur is not fun or no product or productive, right? And so in that case, you will need to actually involve employees and communicate to people that exactly how you are going to achieve your business goals through your different metrics, and keep them informed, and sometimes give them tools and methods to apply those metrics in measure project performance, right? So then automate the data collection as much as possible. And what this is telling us is you do not want to give extra burden to employees who's working on projects, telling them that you have to do this and that, if they have already been occupied with all the project work. That's why if you can figure a way to automate a lot of data collection process in order to quantify your performance based on the metrics, you should go ahead and do that. Next one, using graphics, using visuals, and oftentimes we relies on graphics to give us the first impression in terms of how project's doing. And it's important, especially if you're looking at executives. You do not want to bother executive with all the numbers or the details, but they want to have a very straightforward, a standout kind of visual presentations in terms of how projects has been doing. All right, and always think about how you can communicate your project progress, or how you can communicate your project performance with graphics. So once you come up with this list, all right, using the steps we introduced in previous slides, and how you're going to evaluate them. First one, the validity. Is the data detailed enough so that we can actually use such a data to interpret results? If the data is still at the aggregate level and actually would not give you detailed information at enough granularity, then you need to figure out a way to break it down. Relevance. Is that really something that we're interested in? That's all the question. That's a very important questions for you to ask yourself as you moving into the metrics defined measurement aspects of this process. Reliability is going to be a consistent measure over the time. Will this measurement actually have to change or evolving over the time? All right. If that's the case, then you have to keep that in mind that you got to revisit when the time for it to change. Simplicity. How difficult is it to capture? And you want to have something straightforward, easy to interpret, and also easy to capture. And that is all the things that you should do to keep things simple. Because if you keep things a little bit too much complicated, then it's very difficult for you to implement, because not everyone will understand what you're trying to do. And then this slide actually somehow tells you something different than what we are learning. This actually threw in some of my research findings, not necessarily just in project management, but also in the business operations. And it's talking about how we can use focus as a strategic source of competitive advantages. And what this slide is demonstrating is, when we're looking at business objectives, we're looking at metrics, and we are saying actually you want to focus on something, right? And that's not just from project's perspective, but from a business perspective. Business also needs to find a focus in such a way so that actually they can achieve strategic source of competitive advantage. Looking at the Anderson Cancer Center, what they're doing is just only treating cancers, tumors, right? They're not going to dealing with any other things such as cardiac surgeries or pneumonias or family physicians. There's nothing in that regard. They just deal with the cancer. That is why it's getting so good and it's ranked as the top 3 within the cancer research facilities in the United States. And look at Google, what it's trying to do. It always stands in their first line for the future technologies, right? Not talking about the search engines, the Google Glasses, also looking at their self-driving vehicles and so on and so forth. And then the Motorola, it actually has been done so well in the process management. Actually, it was one of the pioneers in Lean Six Sigma practice. Okay, and Harman Kardon is another company. Actually, some of you probably know, some of you probably don't know. It's just the company who's dealing with audio equipment. We're dealing with the speakers, dealing with the amplifiers. And it has been doing very well, because most of these companies on this slide actually has been doing very well just because they found their focus. All right, it's the same thing as you working on the project. We're looking at the metrics. We're trying to looking at the performance evaluation. Find your focus and put your efforts, put your resource on those focus areas, and keep doing it all the time. And then eventually you're going to receive a strategical competitive advantage by doing that. Okay, this slide is the same thing as I just discussed in the previous slides, but pretty much you want to focus on small set of important metrics. Make sure that you're good at it, you understand it thoroughly, and you implement it fully within your project practice. Of course, we have a little bit more evaluation criteria, review criteria on the slides, but basically you want to make sure that your measurement is consistent with current environment, is up to technology standards, and you do not want using your megabytes, for instance, to measure your storage size right now. You probably want to go with not even gigabytes, but using terabytes right now for us to evaluate the size of our storage. It doesn't measure address a specific goal area, as we discussed before already, and is a mix of measures appropriate considering cost versus value, which is talking about, well, by doing such a way, if you choose a mix of measures, will it be the return on investment by working on such a mix of measures can pay off, right? So what is the return on investment for those? and continue for the metrics review what areas of our programs to evaluate, and when you are trying to decide on the actual metrics or measurements for project evaluation, right? And so what are the specific segments of the lifecycle products function does this deal with? You have to match up the evaluation metrics back to a project management, right? So that there is a one-to-one directions. Remember, your metrics needs to address one of the management areas, right? It also needs to fit into your project management context, all right? And if it has something to do with the product functionality or the features, you also need to see one-to-one relationships over there. Okay, make sure you have a balanced metrics. You do not want to be too much cost focused or too much schedule focused, which means you should not ignore other areas of your projects.